I had just said he was my best friend into the microphone at my best friend's funeral when his father ripped me off the podium and slammed me. My back hit the wooden floor of the church and the air rushed out of my lungs. Gasps echoed through the pews. Someone screamed. I looked up at Mr. Holloway, his face twisted with a rage I had never seen in the 12 years I had known him. His hands were still gripping my collar, knuckles white with fury. "You don't get to say that," he spat. "You don't get to stand up there and pretend like you actually cared about him." Two of Theo's uncles rushed forward and pulled him back. My mom rushed to my side, helping me sit up carefully. My shoulder throbbed where it had connected with the edge of a wooden step. "What is wrong with you?" my mom shouted at him. But Mr. Holloway just pointed at me, his hand shaking violently. "Ask him. Ask your son what he did to my boy." The thing is, I genuinely didn't know what he meant. Theo and I had been inseparable since 6th grade. We had survived middle school together, navigated the chaos of high school, applied to the same colleges. When he died in that car accident 3 weeks ago, a piece of me went with him. I hadn't slept properly since. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady beneath me. "Mr. Holloway, I don't understand what you're talking about." "The money," he said, his voice breaking now. "Theo's college fund. The account he asked you to help him manage last spring." My stomach dropped. 6 months ago, Theo had asked me to help him set up an investment account. He wanted to grow his savings before freshman year started. I had some experience from helping my dad with his small portfolio, so I agreed. We opened a joint account so I could make trades on his behalf whenever he asked. "I never took anything," I said. "Every penny is still there. I can show you the statements right now." Mr. Holloway laughed, but it was hollow and terrible. "The account is empty, transferred out 2 days before he died, and the only other person with access was you." The room started spinning. I grabbed the edge of a pew to steady myself. "That's impossible," I whispered. But even as I said it, my mind was racing. 2 days before Theo died, he had texted me something strange. Just 3 words. "I'm sorry, brother." I had assumed he was being dramatic about some argument we'd had over a video game. I had texted back a laughing emoji and went to sleep. He died the next morning on his way to school. "I didn't transfer anything," I said, looking around at all the faces staring at me. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked uncertain. A few looked completely disgusted. Someone else must have accessed it. Maybe Theo himself. "Don't you dare," Mr. Holloway growled. "Don't you dare blame my son for this." My mom stepped in front of me protectively. "This isn't the place for this. We can sort this out later, with the proper authorities if needed." Mr. Holloway's wife finally reached him, pulling him toward a side door. He went, but not before locking eyes with me one last time. The accusation in his gaze burned into my memory. The funeral continued without me. I sat in the back with my mom, too stunned to process what had just happened. Theo's sister, Emery, delivered the rest of the eulogy in a trembling voice. She didn't look at me once. Afterward, I went home and immediately pulled up the account on my laptop. Mr. Holloway was right. The balance was 0. A single transfer had moved everything, nearly $14,000, to an external account I didn't recognize. But the authorization came from my login credentials. My hands were trembling as I scrolled through the activity log. The transfer happened at 3:47 a.m. I had been asleep. My phone had been charging on my nightstand. And yet, according to every digital record, I had done this. Then I noticed something else. A small note attached to the transfer, visible only in the detailed transaction history. It read, "For Bellamy, she'll explain everything." I didn't know anyone named Bellamy, but apparently, Theo did. I sat at my desk for what felt like hours, staring at that name, Bellamy. The cursor blinked at me from the search bar, waiting. Outside my window, the autumn sun was setting, casting long orange shadows across my bedroom floor. I could hear my mom downstairs talking on the phone in hushed tones, probably to my dad. They'd been divorced for 6 years, but they still called each other when things got serious. Getting publicly accused of theft at your best friend's funeral definitely qualified as serious. I typed Bellamy into every social media platform I could think of. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Nothing connected to Theo came up. I tried searching his followers list, his following list, his tagged photos. No Bellamy anywhere. My phone buzzed. A text from my friend Derek. "Dude, what the hell happened today? Are you okay?" I didn't know how to answer that. I wasn't okay. My best friend was dead. His family thought I was a thief, and I was chasing a ghost named Bellamy. I left Derek on red and went back to searching. Around 9 o'clock, my mom knocked on my door and came in with a plate of food I hadn't asked for. Grilled cheese and tomato soup. The meal she always made when I was sick as a kid. "You need to eat something," she said, setting it on my desk. "I'm not hungry." She sat down on the edge of my bed and looked at me with that expression parents get when they're trying to decide how honest to be with you. "I talked to your father. He thinks we should get a lawyer, just in case." "In case of what?" "I didn't do anything. I know that. But the Holloways are grieving, and grieving people sometimes do things they wouldn't normally do. If they decide to pursue this legally, then I'll show them the evidence. Theo transferred his own money. I just have to figure out why." My mom was quiet for a moment. "Who's Bellamy?" I looked at her, surprised. "How do you know about that? You've been muttering it under your breath for the last hour. These walls aren't that thick." I turned my laptop toward her so she could see the transaction note. She read it twice, her brow furrowing. "And you have no idea who this is?" "None. Theo never mentioned anyone by that name. Not once in 6 years." My mom reached over and squeezed my hand. "Maybe it's time to get some sleep. You can figure this out tomorrow." But I knew I wouldn't sleep. Not until I understood what Theo had been hiding from me. The next morning, I drove to school for the first time since the accident. I had missed 3 weeks already, and my teachers had been understanding about it, but finals were approaching, and I couldn't afford to fall further behind. At least, that's what I told myself. The truth was that I needed to be somewhere other than my bedroom, somewhere I might find answers. The parking lot was already half full when I arrived. A few people stared at me as I walked toward the building. Word had clearly spread about what happened at the funeral. In a town this size, gossip traveled faster than light. I made it to my locker without incident, but when I turned around, Derek was standing there. He was a tall guy, almost 6'4", with a permanent look of mild confusion that masked a surprisingly sharp mind. We'd been friends since freshman year, when we got paired together for a biology project and discovered a shared obsession with terrible horror movies. "Hey," he said, "you look like hell." "Thanks. Seriously, though. Are you all right? I heard about what Mr. Holloway did." I leaned against my locker. "Did you also hear what he accused me of?" Derek nodded slowly. "Yeah, but I don't believe it. You're not a thief, Nolan. Everyone who knows you knows that." It was strange how much those words meant to me in that moment. I hadn't realized how badly I needed someone to say them out loud. "Do you know anyone named Bellamy?" I asked. Derek thought about it. "Bellamy? Like, a first name or a last name?" "I don't know. Could be either. Doesn't ring a bell." "Why?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to keep this information private, to figure it out on my own before involving anyone else. But Derek had been almost as close to Theo as I was. If anyone else might know something, it was him. "Theo left a note," I said quietly, "with the money transfer. It mentioned someone named Bellamy. Said she would explain everything." Derek's eyes widened. "She? So it's a girl?" "Apparently. And you've never heard Theo talk about her?" "Never. Not even once." Derek pulled out his phone and started typing. "Let me check something." He scrolled for a moment, then shook his head. "I'm looking at Theo's Instagram right now. No one named Bellamy in his followers or following. I already checked that. What about his other accounts? Did he have a Finsta or anything?" I stopped cold. A Finsta. A fake Instagram account, usually private, where people posted things they didn't want on their main profile. Theo and I had joked about making one together a couple years ago, but I never actually did it. I had assumed he didn't either. "I don't know," I admitted. "How would I even find it?" "Check his email. If he made one, he probably got a confirmation message." I didn't have access to Theo's email, but I knew someone who might. Emery Holloway was a sophomore, 2 years younger than Theo and me. She had his same dark curly hair and his same habit of talking with her hands when she got excited about something. I had known her since she was 10 years old. We used to play Mario Kart together while Theo did homework. I found her sitting alone in the cafeteria during lunch, picking at a salad she clearly wasn't eating. Her eyes were red-rimmed and puffy. When she saw me approaching, her expression hardened. "What do you want?" she asked. I sat down across from her, keeping my voice low. "I need to talk to you about Theo." "I don't want to talk to you about anything. My dad told me what you did." "I didn't do it, Emery. I swear on everything. Theo transferred that money himself." She laughed bitterly. "Right. My dead brother stole his own college fund. That makes total sense." "It doesn't make sense. That's why I'm trying to figure it out." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot I had taken of the transaction note. "Look at this. Theo left a message. For Bellamy. She'll explain everything. Do you know who that is?" Emery stared at the screen. For a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Recognition? Fear? I couldn't tell. "I don't know anyone named Bellamy," she said, but her voice wavered slightly. "Emery, please. If you know something." I said I don't know. She stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over her untouched salad. "Stay away from me, Nolan. Stay away from my whole family." She walked away, leaving me alone at the table. But as I watched her go, I noticed something. She had taken out her phone and was typing rapidly as she walked. Texting someone. Urgently. She knew something. I was sure of it now. That night, I did something I'm not proud of. I waited outside the Holloway house in my car, parked down the street where I couldn't easily be seen. I felt like a stalker, but I didn't know what else to do. If Emery knew something about Bellamy, maybe she would lead me to her. The Holloways lived in a nice 2-story colonial on Maple Avenue, the kind of house with a wraparound porch and a tire swing in the backyard. I had spent countless hours there over the years. Movie marathons in the basement, barbecues in the summer, Christmas dinners when my parents' divorce made our house too tense. I watched the lights in the windows, tracking movement from room to room. Around 8 o'clock, I saw Emery come out the front door and get into her car, a beat-up Honda Civic that used to be Theo's before he got his truck. She pulled out of the driveway and headed north. I followed at a distance. We drove for about 15 minutes, leaving our town and entering the next one over. Emery parked in front of a small coffee shop called the Roasted Bean. I had never been there before, but it looked cozy. Exposed brick walls visible through the windows, warm yellow lights, mismatched furniture. I parked across the street and watched as Emery went inside. Through the window, I could see her approach a table in the back corner where someone was already sitting. A girl, around our age, maybe a little older. She had shoulder-length auburn hair and was wearing a green army jacket covered in patches. When Emery reached the table, the girl stood up and hugged her tightly. I didn't know this girl. I had never seen her before in my life, but I had a feeling I had just found Bellamy. I waited until Emery left before making my move. She drove past me without noticing, her face unreadable in the darkness. Once her taillights disappeared around the corner, I got out of my car and walked into the coffee shop. The girl was still there, nursing what looked like a hot chocolate. Up close, she looked exhausted. the kind of bone-deep tired that comes from not sleeping for days. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying recently. "Are you Bellamy?" I asked. She looked up at me, startled. For a moment, I thought she was going to deny it, or run away. But then her expression shifted to something like resignation. "You're Nolan," she said. It wasn't a question. "How do you know my name?" "Theo talked about you. A lot." She gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit down. I think we have a lot to discuss." I sat. Up close, I could see that she had a small scar on her chin and a tattoo of a crescent moon on her wrist. She looked like someone who had seen more of the world than a typical teenager should. "Who are you?" I asked. She took a deep breath. "My name is Bellamy Ortiz. I was Theo's girlfriend." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What? That's impossible. Theo didn't have a girlfriend. I would have known. He wanted to tell you. He almost did, like a dozen times. But it was complicated." She wrapped her hands around her mug, staring into the murky liquid. "We met at a youth group meeting last spring. My church was visiting his church for some kind of regional thing. We started talking and just clicked." "Youth group?" I repeated. I knew Theo went to church with his family, but he had never mentioned meeting anyone there. I know it sounds cliché, but it was real. What we had was real. A tear slid down her cheek, and she wiped it away impatiently. "We kept it secret at first because my situation was complicated, and then it just became a habit. The more time passed, the harder it got to tell people." "What do you mean your situation was complicated?" Bellamy hesitated. She looked around the coffee shop as if checking to make sure no one was listening. Then she leaned forward and spoke in a low voice. "I'm emancipated. I left home when I was 16 because my stepdad was, let's just say it wasn't a safe place to be. I've been living on my own ever since, working, going to school when I can, trying to figure out my life." I stared at her. "You're emancipated? At 17? 18 now. But yeah." She shrugged like it was no big deal, but I could see the weight behind her eyes. "I've been supporting myself for almost 2 years. It's not easy, but it beats the alternative." I was starting to understand now why Theo had kept this relationship secret, why he might have done something drastic without telling me. "The money," I said. "The $14,000. It was for you." Bellamy nodded slowly. "I didn't ask him for it. I want you to know that. I never asked him for anything. But 3 weeks ago I got evicted from my apartment. The landlord sold the building and gave us 30 days notice. I had nowhere to go, no savings, nothing. So Theo gave you his college fund. He transferred it to my account. Said it was a loan that I could pay him back whenever I was able to. He didn't want his parents to know because..." She trailed off, struggling to find the words. "Because they would have stopped him," I finished. "Because they would have judged me. Judged us." Theo said his dad had very specific ideas about who Theo should be with. A girl living on her own, working minimum wage jobs with a messed up family background. She shook her head. I wasn't exactly daughter-in-law material. I sat back in my chair, trying to process everything I was hearing. Theo had been living a whole separate life that I knew nothing about. He had been in love, had made plans, had secrets, and now he was gone. "Why didn't you come forward?" I asked. "When the Holloways started accusing me, why didn't you tell them the truth?" Bellamy's face crumpled. "I was scared. I'm still scared. They don't know I exist. If I suddenly showed up claiming their dead son gave me all his money, what do you think would happen? They'd probably have me arrested. But I'm the one getting blamed. They think I stole it. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Her fingers were cold. I didn't know what to do. I've been paralyzed since Theo died. I can barely get out of bed in the morning. And then Emery reached out to me. "Wait, Emery knows about you?" Bellamy nodded. "She found out about a month ago. Saw some texts on Theo's phone and confronted him. He made her promise not to tell their parents. She kept that promise even after he died." That explained Emery's reaction when I showed her the note. She hadn't just recognized the name. She had known exactly who Bellamy was and what the money was for. Why didn't Emery say anything? She could have cleared my name. Because she doesn't trust you. None of them do, apparently. And she was afraid that if she told the truth, I would get in trouble and Theo's secret would come out. She was trying to protect him, even now. Bellamy squeezed my hand. "But I can't let you take the fall for this. It's not right. Theo wouldn't want that. So what do we do?" Bellamy pulled her hand back and reached into her jacket pocket. She pulled out a folded piece of paper and slid it across the table to me. "This is a letter Theo wrote to his parents. He gave it to me the day before he died and asked me to hold on to it. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should make sure they got it." I unfolded the paper carefully. The handwriting was unmistakably Theo's. I had seen it on countless notes passed in class, on birthday cards, on the inside cover of the yearbook he had signed for me every year since 6th grade. "Mom and Dad, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. I hope it never comes to that. But I want you to know the truth about some things I've kept from you. I'm in love with a girl named Bellamy Ortiz. We've been together for almost a year. I didn't tell you because I was afraid of how you'd react. Bellamy comes from a difficult background. She's been on her own since she was 16, and I knew you might not approve. But she's the kindest, strongest person I've ever met, and loving her is not something I'm ashamed of. I transferred my college fund to help her get back on her feet after she lost her apartment. It was my decision, and my decision alone. Nolan had nothing to do with it. He doesn't even know about Bellamy. If there's any confusion about the money, please don't blame him. He's been the best friend I could have ever asked for. I know you might be angry with me. I know I've disappointed you in a lot of ways, but I hope you can understand that I did what I thought was right. I love you both, and I'm sorry for not being braver. Qley. By the time I finished reading, my vision was blurry with tears. This was so typically Theo. Always trying to protect everyone, always taking responsibility, always apologizing for things that weren't his fault. He wrote this the day before he died, I said. Did he know something was going to happen? Bellamy shook her head. No, he was just cautious. He said he had a feeling, like something was hanging over him. I think he was just anxious about the money transfer, about keeping so many secrets. He wanted to make sure that if anything went sideways, there would be a record of the truth. I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. I need to show this to Mr. Holloway. I know. I'll go with you. It's time they learned the truth, even if they hate me for it. We agreed to go together the next day, after school. Bellamy needed time to prepare herself emotionally, and honestly, so did I. I drove home in a daze, my mind churning with everything I had learned. When I got home, my mom was waiting in the living room. She looked worried, more worried than usual, which was saying something given the last few weeks. Where have you been? She asked. I was doing research, looking into the Bellamy thing. Her expression softened slightly. Did you find anything? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to tell her everything, to unload the whole story, but something held me back. I wanted to see this through first, wanted to make sure I could actually clear my name before I got her hopes up. Maybe, I said. I'm still figuring it out. She studied me for a long moment. Your father called again. He's worried about you. I'm fine. You're not fine. None of this is fine. She crossed the room and pulled me into a hug. I resisted for a second, then let myself sink into it. My mom gave the best hugs, solid and warm, the kind that made you feel like maybe everything would actually be okay. It's going to work out, she said into my shoulder. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out together. Okay? Okay, I whispered. I went up to my room and lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling. Theo's letter was still in my pocket, pressing against my leg. I pulled it out and read it again, then a third time, then a fourth. Each time I found some new detail that broke my heart a little more. He's been the best friend I could have ever asked for. Had I been, though, Theo had been going through so much, falling in love, keeping secrets, worrying about his family's reaction, and I had been completely oblivious. Some best friend I was. I wondered what else I had missed. What other parts of his life had I been blind to? We had spent so much time together, talking about everything and nothing. And yet there was this whole dimension of his existence that I knew nothing about. It made me question everything. Every conversation we'd ever had, every memory we'd shared. Had he been hiding things even then? Or had the secrets only started when he met Bellamy? I didn't know. And now, I never would. The next morning, I found Emery waiting by my locker. Her arms were crossed and her jaw was set, but there was something different in her eyes, something softer. Bellamy told me you came to the coffee shop, she said. I followed you there. I'm sorry. I know that's creepy. It is creepy. But she almost smiled. Almost. She also told me you're going to show my parents Theo's letter. Yeah, this afternoon. Emery was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. They're going to be so upset. Not just about the money, about everything. About Bellamy, about the secrets. They're going to feel like they didn't really know their own son. Maybe that's true, but they deserve to know the truth. And so does everyone else who thinks I stole that money. Emery nodded slowly. I know you're right. She broke off, blinking rapidly. I miss him so much. And I thought keeping his secret was a way of honoring him, of being loyal to him even after he was gone. I get it. I really do. I reached out and awkwardly patted her shoulder. We had never been particularly close. She was always just Theo's little sister, a background presence in our friendship. But grief has a way of creating bonds between unexpected people. I'll talk to my parents before you come over, she said. Prepare them a little. I don't want my dad to throw another punch. I'd appreciate that. She started to walk away, then turned back. Nolan, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. For not speaking up sooner. For letting you take the blame. I wanted to say it was okay, but I couldn't. It wasn't okay. It would probably never be okay. But I understood why she did it, and that was something. Let's just focus on fixing it, I said. I picked up Bellamy at 3 o'clock from her new apartment, a tiny studio above a dry cleaner's that she had managed to rent with Theo's money. It was sparse and a little dingy, but she had made an effort to make it feel like home. A few posters on the walls, some plants on the windowsill, a framed photo of her and Theo on the nightstand. I paused in front of the photo. They were at what looked like a county fair, standing in front of a Ferris wheel. Theo was wearing that ridiculous cowboy hat he'd bought as a joke and refused to throw away. Bellamy was laughing, her head thrown back, one hand on his chest. They looked so happy. That was the first time he told me he loved me, Bellamy said from behind me. On top of that Ferris wheel, I thought he was going to propose or something, and I almost had a heart attack. But it was just him being Theo. Dramatic. Over the top. Her voice cracked. Perfect. I set the photo down. You ready? She grabbed her jacket, the same green army jacket from the coffee shop, and nodded. Let's go face the firing squad. We drove to the Holloway house in relative silence. The radio played softly, some song I didn't recognize. Outside, the sky was gray and threatening rain. Appropriate weather for what we were about to do. Emery met us at the front door. She looked nervous, her hands twisting together in front of her. They're in the living room, she said. I told them you were coming, but I didn't tell them about Bellamy. I thought it would be better if she explained herself. Okay, I said. Here goes nothing. The Holloway living room was exactly as I remembered it. Comfortable and warm, with overstuffed couches and family photos covering every surface. Mr. and Mrs. Holloway were sitting on the main couch, their expressions guarded. Mr. Holloway's eyes went to me first, then to Bellamy, and his jaw tightened. Who is this? He demanded. Bellamy stepped forward. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. My name is Bellamy Ortiz. I was Theo's girlfriend. The silence that followed was deafening. Mrs. Holloway's hand flew to her mouth. Mr. Holloway just stared, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been anger. That's impossible, Mrs. Holloway said finally. Theo never mentioned anyone named... He kept it secret, Bellamy said. From everyone except Emery. He was afraid of how you would react. She glanced at Emery, who nodded supportively. I know this is a lot to take in, and I know you have every reason not to trust me, but I have something you need to see. She took Theo's letter from my hand and crossed the room to where the Holloways sat. Mr. Holloway took it hesitantly, as if he was afraid it might burn him. What is this? It's a letter Theo wrote. He gave it to me the day before he died. He wanted you to have it if anything ever happened to him. I watched the Holloways read the letter together. Mrs. Holloway started crying almost immediately, soft tears rolling down her cheeks. Mr. Holloway's expression went from skeptical to shocked to devastated, each emotion playing out in real time across his features. When they finished, Mr. Holloway looked up at me. For the first time since the funeral, there was no accusation in his eyes, just pain. You didn't take the money, he said. No, sir. Theo transferred it himself. He was trying to help Bellamy. Mr. Holloway turned to Bellamy. And you just took it? $14,000 from a teenage boy? I didn't want to, Bellamy said. I told him no a dozen times, but he wouldn't listen. He said it was just sitting there anyway, that he could always take out loans for college. Her voice broke. I was going to pay him back. I was going to pay back every cent, but then... She couldn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Mrs. Holloway stood up and crossed to Bellamy. For a moment, I thought she was going to slap her or yell at her. Instead, she pulled her into a tight embrace. You loved my son, Mrs. Holloway whispered. I can see it in your eyes. You really loved him. Bellamy broke down completely then, sobbing into Mrs. Holloway's shoulder. I did. I loved him so much. I still love him, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for all of this. Mr. Holloway stood up slowly. He walked over to me and stopped about a foot away. We stood there in silence for what felt like hours. Then he said, I owe you an apology. You don't have to. Yes, I do. His voice was thick. What I did at the funeral, that was unforgivable. I was out of my mind with grief, and I needed someone to blame. You were an easy target. He put his hand on my shoulder, the same hand that had thrown me to the ground 3 days ago. I'm sorry, Nolan. I'm so deeply sorry. I didn't know what to say. I had been so focused on clearing my name that I hadn't thought about what would come after, what it would feel like to hear those words. Thank you, I managed. Theo was lucky to have you as a friend. I know that now. I should have known it all along. The conversation that followed lasted for hours. Bellamy told the Holloways everything, how she and Theo met, how their relationship developed, why they kept it secret. She showed them photos on her phone, texts that Theo had sent her, a playlist he had made for her birthday. Piece by piece, a picture emerged of a Theo that none of us had fully known. A Theo who was romantic and thoughtful, who wrote poetry when he couldn't sleep, who dreamed of traveling the world with the girl he loved. At one point, Mrs. Holloway asked Bellamy about her family situation. Bellamy told the truth, holding nothing back. Her abusive stepfather, her mother who looked the other way, her decision to leave at 16 and build a life on her own. When she finished, Mrs. Holloway was crying again. You've been through so much, and you're so young. You're just a child. I haven't felt like a child in a long time, Bellamy said. Mr. Holloway, who had been mostly silent during Bellamy's story, finally spoke up. What are your plans now? Do you have enough to... the money Theo gave you? I have an apartment. It's small, but it's safe, and I'm working 2 jobs. I'll be okay. She hesitated. I can start paying you back if you want. It might take a while, but... Absolutely not, Mr. Holloway said firmly. That money was Theo's to give. If he wanted you to have it, then it's yours. We won't take a cent. Bellamy looked like she was about to argue, but Mrs. Holloway cut her off. He's right. Theo made his choice, and we have to honor that. She reached out and took Bellamy's hand. But we would like to stay in touch. If you're willing. You were important to our son. That makes you important to us. I watched this exchange with a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that the truth was finally out, that my name was cleared, that the Holloways could begin to heal. Sadness that it had taken all of this, the accusations, the secrets, the pain, to get here. And underneath it all, the persistent ache of missing Theo. That wasn't going anywhere, I realized. It would be with me for a long time. The next few weeks were a slow process of rebuilding. Mr. Holloway called the people he had told about the money, friends, family members, anyone who might have heard his accusations, and explained the truth. It was humiliating for him, I could tell, but he did it anyway. He even posted a public apology on Facebook, which my mom showed me with tears in her eyes. At school, the whispers gradually died down. Derek made a point of loudly defending me to anyone who would listen, which was both embarrassing and touching. A few people apologized for the looks they had given me at the funeral. Most just moved on, their attention captured by newer drama. Emery and I developed an unexpected friendship. She started sitting with me and Derek at lunch sometimes, sharing stories about Theo that made us laugh and cry in equal measure. She had a dry sense of humor that reminded me of her brother. The same deadpan delivery, the same perfect timing. He used to do this thing, she told us one day, where he would narrate his life like a nature documentary. Like, he'd be making a sandwich and say, And here we see the adolescent male in his natural habitat, preparing a meal of peanut butter and jelly. Note the careful application of jam, a technique passed down through generations. Derek snorted. That's incredible. I wish I had known about that. He did it all the time. It drove my parents crazy, but I thought it was hilarious. I smiled, but there was a pang in my chest. Another thing I had never known, another piece of Theo that existed outside our friendship. But I was learning to be okay with that. None of us knows everything about the people we love. We only get fragments, glimpses, moments. The best we can do is cherish what we have and accept that there will always be things beyond our reach. A month after the confrontation at the Holloway house, Bellamy came to me with an idea. I want to do something to honor Theo, she said. We were sitting on a bench in the park near her apartment, watching the leaves fall from the trees. It was late November now, and the air had turned cold. Something meaningful. Something that would make him proud. What did you have in mind? She pulled out her phone and showed me a website. It was for a nonprofit organization that helped young people from difficult backgrounds pursue higher education, scholarships, mentorship programs, housing assistance. I want to donate some of the money Theo gave me, she said. Not all of it. I still need to pay rent and eat, but some. Enough to make a difference for someone else. I looked at the website, then back at her. That's amazing, Bellamy. Theo would have loved that. I was thinking we could start a scholarship fund in his name. For kids like me. Kids who don't have families to fall back on. She hesitated. I talked to the Holloways about it. They want to contribute too. They said they've been looking for a way to honor him that felt right. I thought about Theo, about the kind of person he was. Always helping, always giving, always putting others first. This felt exactly like something he would want. Count me in, I said. Whatever you need. Bellamy smiled. The first real smile I had seen from her since we met. Thanks, Nolan. That means a lot. Setting up the scholarship fund was more complicated than I expected. There were legal documents to file, a board to establish, a website to build. My mom helped with the paperwork. She had some experience from her job at a nonprofit in the city. Mr. Holloway contributed a significant amount of money, enough to establish an endowment that would keep the fund going for years. We named it the Theodore Holloway Memorial Scholarship. The first recipient would be selected in the spring. The process brought me closer to the Holloway family than I had ever been before. I started having dinner with them once a week, sitting in Theo's old seat at the table, sharing stories and memories. It was bittersweet, every laugh tinged with sadness, every smile shadowed by absence, but it was also healing. For all of us. One evening, after dinner, Mr. Holloway asked me to help him in the garage. He had been cleaning out some of Theo's things and wanted my input on what to keep. The garage was cluttered with boxes, each one labeled in Theo's neat handwriting. Childhood toys, school papers, random junk. I don't know what to do with most of this, Mr. Holloway admitted. Some of it seems important, but I can't tell what. We went through the boxes together, sorting items into piles. Keep, donate, throw away. It was tedious work, but also strangely meditative. Every object was a piece of Theo's life, a physical reminder that he had existed. In one of the boxes labeled random junk, I found something that made me pause. It was a notebook, bound in faded leather, with Theo's name written on the inside cover. What's that? Mr. Holloway asked. I flipped through the pages. It was full of handwriting, Theo's handwriting. Page after page of poems, journal entries, random thoughts. Some were dated, others weren't. Some were happy, others were sad. All of them were unmistakably, undeniably him. I think it's a journal, I said. Or a diary. I didn't know he kept one. Mr. Holloway took the notebook from me and stared at it for a long moment. His eyes were wet. Neither did I, he said quietly. I didn't want to intrude on his privacy, so I excused myself and went inside. But later that night, Mr. Holloway sent me a photo. It was a page from the notebook, dated about a year ago. Sometimes I feel like I'm living two lives. There's the Theo that everyone knows, the good student, the loyal friend, the dutiful son, and then there's the real Theo, the one who's scared and confused and desperately in love with a girl his parents would never approve of. I wonder which one is the real me, or if they're both real, or if neither of them is. Nolan keeps telling me to be more honest with people, to stop hiding, but he doesn't understand how hard it is. He's always been himself, unapologetically. I don't know how to do that. Maybe someday I'll figure it out. Maybe someday I'll be brave. I read those words over and over, tears streaming down my face. Theo had thought I was brave. He had looked up to me, admired me, wanted to be more like me, and I had never known. I had spent so much time wishing I had been a better friend, wishing I had seen what he was going through. But maybe the truth was simpler than that. Maybe I had been exactly what he needed, just by being myself, just by being there. It wasn't enough to save him. Nothing could have done that. The accident was just an accident. A patch of ice, a turn taken too fast, a tragedy that no one could have predicted or prevented. But maybe it was enough to matter. Maybe the friendship we had, imperfect as it was, meant something. To both of us. Spring came slowly that year. The snow melted, the trees budded, the days grew longer. I graduated from high school in May, walking across the stage to receive my diploma while my mom cried and my dad took too many photos. The Holloways were there too, sitting in the front row, clapping and cheering like I was one of their own. Theo should have been there with me. We had always planned to graduate together, to throw our caps in the air at the same time, to face the future side by side. Instead, there was an empty seat next to Derek, a gap in the lineup where he should have been standing. But he was there too, in a way. I could feel him, in the breeze that ruffled my graduation gown, in the sunlight that warmed my face, in the memory of all the years we had shared, all the laughter and tears and late-night conversations. After the ceremony, Bellamy found me in the crowd. She was wearing a yellow sundress and had done something different with her hair. It was longer now, pulled back in a loose braid. "Congratulations," she said, pulling me into a hug. "Thanks. Are you coming to the party later?" "Wouldn't miss it." She pulled back and looked at me seriously. "I have news. I got accepted to the community college. Full scholarship." I grinned. "Bellamy, that's amazing." "I know. I still can't believe it." She laughed, a little giddy. "I'm going to study social work. I want to help kids like me, kids who need someone in their corner." It was exactly right, exactly what she was meant to do. I thought about how proud Theo would be if he could see her now, how happy it would make him to know that she was going to be okay. "He would be so proud of you," I said. Bellamy's eyes glistened. "I know. I feel him sometimes. Is that weird?" "No, I feel him too." We stood there for a moment, two people bound together by love and loss, by the memory of a boy who had changed both our lives. Then someone called my name, my mom probably, and the moment passed. "Go celebrate," Bellamy said. "You earned it." The summer before college was a blur of packing and goodbyes. I was heading to a state school about 4 hours away, the same one Theo and I had both gotten into, the one we had planned to attend together. It felt strange to be going alone, wrong, somehow. But I went anyway, because that's what Theo would have wanted, because giving up wasn't an option. On my last night at home, my mom sat on my bed while I finished packing. She looked older than I remembered, though I couldn't pinpoint exactly what had changed. Maybe just the weight of the year, the accumulation of worry and stress. "I'm going to miss you," she said. "I'll be back for Thanksgiving, and Christmas, and probably every other weekend, because I'll forget something important." She laughed. Probably true. I sat down next to her and leaned my head on her shoulder, the way I used to do when I was little. She put her arm around me and held on tight. "I'm proud of you," she said, "for everything you've done this year. The way you handled the thing with the Holloways, the scholarship fund, all of it." She kissed the top of my head. "Theo was lucky to have you. I was lucky to have him." We sat there in silence for a while, just the two of us, listening to the sounds of the house settling around us. Outside, the summer cicadas were singing their endless song. "You know," my mom said eventually, "I think he's still with you, in some way. I don't know if I believe in heaven or ghosts or any of that stuff, but I believe that the people we love don't really leave us. They become part of us, part of who we are." I thought about that for a long time after she left. Part of who we are. Maybe that was true. Maybe Theo was still there, woven into the fabric of my being, influencing my choices and shaping my path in ways I couldn't even see. Or maybe he was just gone, and all I had left were memories and regrets. Either way, I was going to carry him with me for the rest of my life. College was harder than I expected. Not the classes, those were fine, but the social aspect was challenging. Making new friends felt like a betrayal somehow, like I was replacing the person who should have been there with me. I called Derek almost every day at first, needing the connection to home. He was at a school on the East Coast, pursuing his dream of becoming an engineer. We complained about dining hall food and weird roommates and professors who assigned too much reading. It helped. A little. I also kept in touch with Bellamy. She texted me updates about her classes, about the job she'd gotten at a local shelter, about the apartment she was sharing with a roommate she'd met through the community college housing board. She seemed happy, settled, like she was finally building the life she deserved. "Theo would be proud," she texted me one night. "I can feel it." "I know," I replied. "He would be proud of both of us." It was true. I believed that. Most days. The first recipient of the Theodore Holloway Memorial Scholarship was announced in October. Her name was Renee, and she was a senior at a high school in the city. She had been in foster care since she was 12 and had worked her way to a 4.0 GPA despite moving between 6 different homes. She wanted to study medicine. The Holloways flew me out for the announcement ceremony. I sat in the front row with them and Bellamy and Emery, watching as Renee accepted the award with tears in her eyes. She gave a speech about resilience and gratitude and the importance of people who believe in you. When she mentioned Theo's name, I felt something shift in my chest. Not pain exactly. Something softer. Something like peace. This was his legacy. Not the money, not the scholarship, but this. The ripple effect of his kindness spreading outward, touching lives he would never know. Bellamy, Renee, whoever came next. It wasn't enough to bring him back. Nothing would ever be enough for that. But it was something, and something was better than nothing. I visited Theo's grave for the first time on the 1-year anniversary of his death. I had been avoiding it, if I'm being honest. The cemetery felt too final, too concrete. As long as I stayed away, I could pretend he was just somewhere else, traveling maybe, or too busy to call. But a year was long enough. It was time. The cemetery was quiet in the early morning light. A few other people walked among the headstones, lost in their own grief. I found Theo's plot near the back, under a tall oak tree whose leaves were just starting to turn. Theodore James Holloway, beloved son, brother, friend. He made the world brighter. I stood there for a long time, not saying anything. What was there to say? I had spent a year talking to him in my head, carrying on our friendship in the only way I still could. A few more words weren't going to change anything, but eventually, I spoke anyway. "Hey man, it's me, obviously." A bird chirped somewhere in the tree above me. I took that as encouragement. So, a lot has happened since you left. The scholarship fund is going really well. We helped this girl named Renee. You would have loved her. She's fierce, like Bellamy. I paused, collecting my thoughts. Bellamy's doing great, by the way. She's in school now, studying social work. She's going to help so many people. I crouched down and touched the cool stone of the headstone. I miss you. Every day. And I'm sorry I didn't know about all the stuff you were going through. I wish you had told me. I would have understood. I would have had your back, no matter what. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves above me. I imagined it was Theo's response. I know, brother. I know. Anyway, I should go. Got a class in a few hours. I stood up and brushed off my jeans. I'll come back soon. I promise. I walked away without looking back. It was easier that way. Life went on. That's what life does. I finished my freshman year with decent grades and a small group of friends I actually liked. Derek and I managed to see each other over winter break and picked up exactly where we had left off. The Holloways continued to treat me like family, inviting me to holidays and birthdays and random dinners whenever I was home. The scholarship fund grew, more donations came in, and we were able to help 2 students the second year, 3 the third. Each one was a testament to Theo's memory, a reminder that his life had mattered even after it ended. Bellamy graduated from community college and transferred to a 4-year university to complete her degree. She sent me a picture of her in her cap and gown, beaming at the camera. I printed it out and put it on my wall, next to a photo of me and Theo from junior year. Emery started high school and discovered a passion for drama. She starred in the school play her sophomore year, a production of Our Town which seemed fitting, and I drove 4 hours to see it. She was incredible. Theo would have been so proud. And me? I kept going. I studied business because it seemed practical, but I also took classes in creative writing because I had discovered a love for telling stories. Maybe someday I would write about all of this. About Theo and Bellamy and the funeral that changed everything. Or maybe I would keep it private. Some stories are just for the people who lived them. On the 5th anniversary of Theo's death, I went back to the cemetery. This time, Bellamy and Emery came with me. The 3 of us stood around his grave, sharing memories and wiping away tears. Remember the time he tried to cook dinner for everyone? Emery said, laughing despite herself. He almost burned the house down. Those were supposed to be pancakes, I added. They looked like hockey pucks. Bellamy smiled. He was so proud of them, though. Made everyone take a bite. We stayed for about an hour, just talking, remembering. It was easier now, 5 years later. The pain had dulled to something more like a persistent ache. Always there, but manageable, livable. Before we left, I placed a small stone on top of the headstone. A Jewish tradition, I had learned, symbolizing that someone had visited and remembered. See you next year, buddy, I said. And I meant it. Life doesn't wrap up in neat little bows. That's one of the things I've learned. The Holloways never fully got over their son's death. How could they? But they found ways to keep living, to find joy in the moments they still had. Bellamy became a social worker, just like she planned, and spent her career fighting for kids who had no one else in their corner. Emery graduated from college and became a teacher, shaping young minds the same way Theo had shaped hers. And me? I finished college, got a job, fell in love with a girl named Corinne who had a laugh like sunshine and a stubborn streak that rivaled my own. We got married in a small ceremony, and Derek was my best man, just like Theo should have been. I never stopped thinking about him. He was there in every major milestone, every quiet moment, every time I saw something he would have loved. He became part of me, just like my mom said he would, part of who I am. Sometimes late at night, I still talk to him. I tell him about my day, about Corinne, about the scholarship fund and all the lives we've touched in his name. I don't know if he can hear me. I don't know if any of it matters, but it makes me feel less alone, and maybe that's enough. The last time I visited Theo's grave was on my 40th birthday. I was graying at the temples by then, with a teenage daughter who reminded me of Emery at that age, sharp and funny, and utterly impossible to argue with. I stood at the headstone, which had weathered over the years but still stood strong. The inscription was a little harder to read now, but I didn't need to read it. I knew it by heart. Hey man, I said. It's been a while. The cemetery was quiet, as always. A few birds sang in the trees. The sun was warm on my face. I brought you something. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small photograph. It was the one of us from junior year, the same one I had kept on my wall through college and beyond. We were sitting on the hood of his truck, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera like we had the whole world figured out. I tucked the photo under the stone and stepped back. Corinne's good. The kid is driving me crazy, but in a good way. Work is work. You know how it is. I paused, struggling to find the words. I still miss you. Every day. That hasn't changed. The wind rustled through the leaves, and for a moment I could almost hear his voice. I miss you too, brother. I smiled, even as tears pricked at my eyes. Yeah, well, you're stuck with me. Even now. I stayed for a while longer, just sitting with him. Then I got up, brushed off my pants, and headed back to my car. Life was waiting. It always was. And Theo, my best friend, my brother, the person who taught me what love and loyalty really meant, would be with me every step of the way.